Okay.
They're the bad kids.
Okay.
I think it's okay. If you don't mind peeking over there once in a while, and if it's, I'm showing the right thing.
Is it recording?
It is now recording, yes. Thank you, Amy.
All right, we're all set. All right, I'd like to call a special meeting of the Germantown Central School District Board of Education to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. I need a motion to amend the agenda to include C under consent agenda, under personnel, non-action item A, and under superintendent, action item A. Any second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right, capital project, non-action item, capital project update by Luis Rodriguez of the Palumbo Group and Dave Thamel, CPL.
So I'll just remind everybody, Tammy is mic'd and this is the other mic. So we will need to hand it around as we need it. So who's up first? So
He wants to go first this time.
we anticipated you would stand up here. And there's hand wipes to use afterwards, right?
All right. On point, on point.
I'm good. And when you start singing,
All right, so everybody that was able to be at the tour got a good idea of where we are with regard to progress on the project. For those that weren't able to participate, and for the public, the exterior of the building, the site work is coming along, final grading, as well as the roadway pad is in. Some time ago, the ball fields were seeded, and the grass is trying to grow through the summer. So that really hasn't changed much, but the site work around the building has. Inside the building, as you enter the building at the main entrance, now there's a secure vestibule there. Doors are coming within the next 2 weeks and will be installed. There is access through those doorways now, just no final doors. The doors do lock and function the way they had been previously. But the work in the security booth is completed. Just final, I say completed, meaning it's painted and the floor's in. There's just some final touch-ups that have to happen, lock sets and things like that. In the auditorium, the main space, you saw the seating is going in, maybe 75 or 80% of the seating is in. The flooring has to be finished, some trim on the rails and things like that are still incomplete. Other than that, that space is pretty much coming along. You saw the ceiling was painted out black, the tiles on the walls, the sound shelf is installed. It's coming along. In the corridors and the lobbies, very similar condition. The biggest thing that's remaining is the flooring, but that's always the last thing to be installed, regardless of whether we were in this COVID situation or not. That's pretty much the highlights of the project. Does anybody have any questions?
great. Like I said, it looks amazing. So,
Except for that, it looks great.
yes. Truly does look amazing. It's too bad you missed it. But it was just, there were seats in the auditorium. It just looks so awesome. So did Ralph show you pictures?
Did anybody take pictures that you're gonna put on the website? Go on.
I took some pictures so I can send them in to Sue. And
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
but yeah, it was,
Go ahead, run it into.
I'm sorry, but it was just, I can't wait till it's done.
People that will pick their own hours.
Yeah, I know. That work thing.
So I was hoping I wouldn't have to talk. Dave did all the work. I was hoping Dave wouldn't have to talk. Yeah, so Dave he gave a good overview of where we're at. I do have a presentation. I didn't bring it with me on the zip, and what it does is shows some great pictures, not from from different vantage points that you guys couldn't get to, in particular the control booth. So we have some pictures that are looking down at the stage from the control booth area. And so I'm going to send that outline to Sue so that you guys can put that on the website and, you know, and share that with the public. All the contractors right now, we're in a good position as far as bringing the project to closure. The original substantial completion date for this project was at the end of October. What we've been doing from day one is really trying to press them for an earlier completion date. So when you look at where we are right now, we feel pretty good about it because within the next couple of weeks, like Dave said, we're really working finishes. You know, the seats are in. The theatrical contractor that was recently hired is going to be throwing in some rigging elements that are going to allow us to do some work there. Speakers are going to be going in. What you didn't see is on either side of the proscenium, there's speakers that get hung there. You'll see the cables that were hanging down. That's work that needs to be done. There's lighting associated, rope lighting that's associated with the carpet tile that goes down. So there's quite a bit of work there. Within the next couple of weeks, you're going to see a lot of changes, even more than what you saw today. It's just really going to come together and become pretty special. But I feel good about where we are today as far as schedule. We are also having executive meetings in regards to budget. We are very tight with the budget. And we're just looking at any which way we can to make sure we can get any credits back from the contractors to make sure we stay within the 11 million and change that was approved by the community. So that's going to be pretty important, and that is happening in parallel. Our next major update or exec meeting in regards to budget is on September 16th, and promised Sue to come back with as much as I can, any finalized, any last minute changes that are out there, and really talk to that. So, but each one of the contractors, again, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. We're coming to the end. And what's really, I think what's important is that this has happened through this pandemic. We've had shortages. When you look at material shortages, it's happened. The seating, for example, was supposed to be delivered over a month ago. I mean, it helped us in this situation, but the seating got pushed. The vestibule work at the front entry got pushed. The rope lighting, something as simple as rope lighting that's part of the aisle lighting. That's why you didn't see all the carpet down. We've been waiting. We can easily put the carpet down. We're waiting because the rope lighting is integral to the carpet going down. So there's little things that are happening that we had to hold back because the COVID situation did affect manufacturing. But even through that, we're still on point with the schedule, and we're tight with the budget, but we're working hard to make sure that we bring that in on target for you guys as well. So other than that, any other questions?
Yeah, the fields themselves, when will they be able to actually use those? I think we've had this conversation.
So yeah, so the requirement is 2 growing seasons. In theory, the right time to use them would be the fall of 2021.
Okay.
In theory, I've seen districts take ownership of fields and use them earlier. So really what's happened is right now we started the growing season a little early. We have some crabgrass out there. We didn't accept it. They have to continue to work on those fields.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, I still look at the fall as being the first real hard growing season. Then we come into the spring. That'll be your second growing season. And then coming back into the fall of 2021, that's when you really should, in theory, be using it for the first time. I've seen a lot of districts, I'm sure you have, Dave, as well. They'll start using them beforehand, but what they do is regulate the use. so that they don't, overuse the field or kill what's in
Yeah.
play. So,
Okay.
but that's how we bought it as well. We bought that schedule with the 2 growing seasons, and they're required to maintain it for this fall, and then you'll take over and maintain it going into the spring.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? You said it looks amazing. One more time, just
It's
rubbing it.
pretty impressive.
It is.
Yeah.
Now it will make sense.
Yeah.
I guess is when you're going through, it's like, oh, this totally makes sense now.
It's pretty impressive.
So.
Yeah.
Yep. Hold on.
And of course, it has to do with the money. So Lou said that the budget is tight and possibly getting some credits back from the contractors. But what happens if we don't and we go over? What do we have to do then? Does that come from our reserve?
Sure. It's handing off of the baton. So I already have estimated credits in there. So really right now, we're going to be doing a dance with the contractors, going back and forth on these credits. What we need to do is really look at, first and foremost, we look at to see what is aidable and not aidable. And if for some reason, say at the end, I was 20,000 off the mark, I would pull out of the project the 20,000 that potentially was not aidable and say, how can we deal with this out of operational budget or something else like that? That's what I would do. But right now, I believe we can bring this thing in. I think we all have to work hard. The whole team is working hard at working on as many credits as we can at this point to just really make sure that we're within your bond limit of that 11 million. So.
I'm the banker, that's why I worry.
Yeah, no, I worry about it all the time. It keeps me awake. I take it like it's my money, so it's important. So we're right there. We had an hour and a half meeting today on it with your fiscal advisors, really just going through what are we missing, what are we missing, what are we missing, and we're going to continue to do that to make sure we're on point.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Boy, I can't wait till COVID's over. Things have never been so clean. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Thanks, David. Good night.
Have a good night. Okay. All right, any motion to approve consent agenda items as listed? All right, Donald, any second? All right, Les second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right, personnel action item, adopt the following resolution. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, that the Board of Education of the Germantown Central School District hereby appoints Lisa Shanley to the position of attendance aide, a 12-month part-time and non-competitive class of civil service, effective August 31st, 2020, according to the agreement with the Germantown Support Association, GSA, and the Germantown Central School District at $12.68 per hour for 34 hours per week. Any motion?
I'll make,
Okay, there, second. Annie, any discussion?
are there benefits to this, or is it just straight pay?
The benefits are outlined in the GSA contract.
Anything else? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right, non-action item is superintendent search discussion. I asked Sue to put this on here at the last minute because today is actually the last day for our applications to come in Today was the deadline. And when I talked to Gladys last week, she had 13 in her hand. Expecting more to come in the next, till today. I have a meeting with her on the 1st of September to, I guess, find out about this. So what I was looking for is a couple of dates that I can give her for the preliminary interviews that we're going to do. And then some guidelines for candidates that we, like what are some of the things, in that sense of what I'm looking for when she starts talking about going through the resumes, because she'll vet everybody, and that's part of their things that they'll do to see if they're certified, not certified, years of service, that sort of thing, if we can eliminate, early on some of the candidates. So, I'm sorry, what was it?
Felony.
Felonies, yeah. Please no felonies. Okay. So first of all, dates. So according to the timeline, the first round of interviews were supposed to go at September 15th. Well, we have a board meeting that night, I believe. So it can't be that night.
No, we don't. It's Tuesday.
Oh, is it that's Tuesday? Okay. The 15th.
Got a calendar right behind you.
The 9th is the board.
The 9th is the board meeting. I'm sorry, my bad. Okay. So would so the 15th would work, 16th, would you want to stick to Wednesdays? Because I know that Donald, that helps you. Wednesdays? Okay, what time, Teresa? Because
If you give me a time now, I can ask to be let out, I don't think I could get here any sooner than 4:30 at
Okay.
the earliest, but 5 o'clock I should be able to.
5:30. Okay. All right, so I'll stick to 5 o'clock, to 5:30. Depending on how many candidates we interview, and it could be a 2-day process. That's the only,
I think we did that the last time, it was a couple days.
okay, so that would be September 15th. Or 16th, excuse me, is a Wednesday. I would prefer to do them all that week. September 16th. 16th. 16th is a Wednesday.
The 16th, at 6:30.
At 5, we're going to shoot for 5.
Did you say the next day,
I-
Thursday also?
I would like to do it as,
Is that the third Thursday?
yes. So that wouldn't work for you?
If I don't have a zoning meeting, which I haven't had
Okay,
since COVID started, I don't see it being a problem.
okay,
So I'll say yes.
okay. 17th work for you?
That's fine.
That's fine.
Second Thursdays are the ones that.
Okay, this is the 3rd, so that week would work, okay. I don't know if they'll be in person or Zoom. I don't know. But they could be Zoom, so we could be sitting at home. All right. I will have more information and I'll email it out to you once I meet with her on the 1st, which is going to be on Zoom.
I would hope that it could be meeting face to face.
So do I.
More out of that than you would through Zoom.
Yeah, I think I don't, I'm comfortable with it if you guys are.
So we can make this room available and set it up with a person sitting down there for you?
Yeah. Okay. And I did ask Linda to be part of this, as she is our board clerk. And we'll be working directly with the superintendent. I don't know what role you play, if any. What do you want to do?
I'll be doing my homework.
Okay. So I'll give her those 2 dates and hopefully we'll be able to weed people out.
So are you talking 5 o'clock on Thursday too? So that
Well,
can tell-
I would, yeah,
Okay.
I will let you know definitely on September 1st.
Okay.
Okay, but because until then, I don't know how many people we're going to interview. I don't know. So, okay. I am, when we start talking about superintendents and everything else, we only have a limited budget. So I'm not going to be looking for someone with 10, 15 years experience. I mean, unfortunately, it's just, we don't have the money for that. So, okay. Everybody's good with that? All right, so on the first, I will meet with Gladys. I'll find out. I will send that out to everybody as soon as I know. And we'll definitely set stuff up. All right, and hopefully our goal is to get somebody. We might have to have a special meeting at the last minute to appoint, so that person can put in 30 days and Sue can actually retire when she wants to.
That's gonna be cutting it close.
It'll be cutting it close, yes. But when we have a candidate, I intend to have a contract.
When we have, not yet.
No, when we have a candidate, I'm gonna have a contract in hand and it will hopefully be quick. Okay. All right. All right, Superintendent.
So I have a presentation for you this evening. And I'm going to try to figure out if I can display this for our public audience while I'm talking to the board. So actually, it is being displayed for our audience. And just for the folks who are joining us this evening, it will also be posted for you on our website under Board of Education. And I'm going to have to stay in this seat so that I can operate both things at once. Okay, so this is an update on the recommendation for budget reductions. This document is attempting to capture where we are with the very recent information that we received indicating, this is just not, hang on a second, please, I'm sorry.
How about
Oh, sorry. Okay, I went to the second item. Sorry about that. Yeah, don't let me forget to do that. So I can't quite get this to display properly because it's not happy about the way I have it up there, but nevertheless, you folks can see it. So we received some very disconcerting information from the State Department of Education, which if you turn to the first page, I have attempted to summarize a very complicated matter. In May, we were concerned about a 25% reduction in foundation aid, which prompted reductions in planning the 2021 program. We just received a state aid payment for the year 2019-2020 that was 80% of the amount that we anticipated receiving. So it was for our high tax aid, and we only received 80% of the money that we typically do receive after the year closes out. And so the only way to account for the missing money is by reducing the fund balance that was left over last year, 2019-2020. Now, as you know, we hoped that the fund balance would help us through the anticipated difficult economic times. It is now less than it was at the actual close of that school year. On August 13th, right around when we received that last state aid payment for last year, the Division of Budget, New York State Division of Budget, issued their first quarter state budget financial plan update, which notes that in the absence of federal action since the enactment of the fiscal year 2021 New York State budget, they are now withholding 20% of most local aid payments. The Division of Budget went on to say that all or some of these withholds may be converted to permanent reductions. In July, the DOB began withholding 20% of general aid, excess cost aid, and BOCES aid payments. I want to take you back to May when we had this conversation and what we were looking at that time. At the time, I had calculated a 25%, 30%, and 40% foundation aid reduction. The board worked hard to determine what to do, and we decided to go with the 25% reduction. Program reductions were outlined in a public meeting that totaled $918,910. Some of these reductions are already in place. Now we need to adjust our priorities, because the task of reopening school for in-person and remote instruction is, as you know, a massive undertaking. So what I'm trying to capture here for the board is the consideration of that task and what we are now facing. The next document shows the 100% amount of aid that we anticipated receiving this year. Notice that the foundation aid is the only aid we thought was going to be reduced. That was really what we were going on back in May. But now we are hearing, and the Department of Budget has included in their statement, that all state aid is being considered to be reduced by 20%. In addition to state aid, they are talking about reducing grants. So what I did is I outlined the 100% amount of each of these aids and the pre-K grant, and indicating what 20% reduction would look like. The total is $1,014,278, considerably more than the $978,000 that we were worried about in May. On the next page, Dina Bizzaro, the business manager, and I have looked at this very closely and very carefully. We have already reduced some of the anticipation of aid, and those are the bottom 5 items, which I will begin with. The pre-kindergarten grant reduction of 20% will be absorbed completely by that program. That is a program somewhat in isolation from the rest of the program, because it is a 100% grant-funded program. We have looked very carefully at it, and we have been very fortunate to have the pre-K grant for many years. They have all new classroom furniture, brand new technology, 2/3 of a brand new playground, and the good news is all those things have already happened with past grant funds. We will not be purchasing additional materials, supplies, equipment, or doing any projects with the pre-K grant this year. With the 20% reduction, we will be able to just pay the personnel in that classroom. But that is actually decent news. We can pay the personnel in that classroom. The transportation aid is a tough hit because transportation is so expensive, and now you add the unknowns of the COVID pandemic and how it may or may not affect transportation needed for the upcoming year, and how it affected transportation that we needed in the March through June period of last year. We have been in active negotiation with our contractors, and we believe that 20% will be absorbed through agreements with our contractors and the very careful work we did last spring by not using our contractors except for a very minor amount and asking them to invoice us separately for the grab-and-go meal distribution, which Dina already has in our package going to FEMA to be repaid to the district if all goes well. Of course, we cannot assume that, so we still have to be extremely careful with transportation. In addition, last spring, the contractors agreed to reduce their invoicing by, believe it or not, 20%. So we were able to save some funds there, which Dina has used as a fund balance to take the place of the 20%, because these are expense-driven aids. So the aid we received this year is on last year. So we feel we have a decent handle on the loss in transportation aid. Textbook aid, computer hardware aid, and other state aid. And if you go back one page, you'll see, honestly, these are relatively minor amounts. Textbook is $79.52. Computer hardware is $631, $14 in other state aids. We have already reduced our budget for those amounts, and so those smaller amounts will be absorbed. Now, if you look at the top where it says, how will the district adjust? It is the top 4 aids that are the problem. The foundation aid, for obvious reasons, because it's such a large amount of money, $735,128. The excess cost aid, this is money we spent on high-cost external programs for students who require high-cost programs, and we are not getting the aid that we anticipated. The BOCES aid, I must say, we are also just shocked to see that, to be honest. This is money that we spent last year. We spent it knowing we were getting the BOCES aid on those items, and they are likely reducing it to the tune of $67,000. And the high tax aid, a little lower, but nevertheless, it totals a pretty drastic amount of $868,541. One thing about the COVID pandemic and the economy that we're in is that what is true today may not be true tomorrow. But we have to take this one day at a time. This is what we know now. I would love to think it's not going to get worse, but I think we have to have eyes wide open and ready to be very, very careful with our spending this year. In addition to that, the extra pressure on the district to purchase all the items needed for in-person instruction, as well as all the items we need for remote instruction, has changed. Looks like I have 2 of the same page, sorry about that. Has changed the way things look in my recommendations. And that is on the page that says new 2021 spending plan reductions. So I want to step through these. What you see on the left were the May 2020 recommendations made by Dina and myself. And then the adjustments really primarily because of things that have happened since May. Number 1 item being the COVID pandemic. Originally, we had recommended in building and grounds to eliminate the purchase of new equipment and to cut our part-time custodian. You may or may not remember that our original budget back in January made that part-time custodian a full-time. We lost that with the bad economic news prior to the COVID pandemic. I am now recommending we keep that custodian at a half-time rate. Cleaning and disinfecting this building goes along with our number 1 guiding assumption to reopen school, which is the health and safety of all students and staff. The items, the reductions for the area of Committee on Special Education and Pupil Personnel Services, I recommend those reductions remain in place. Extracurricular reductions, which include athletics being reduced to one category of team each season, primarily the varsity. The thinking behind that is, of course, the students who will graduate and the students who are close to graduation should be able to play, hoping that the world gets a little better, to give the other children in 7 through 10 the ability to play in future years. Materials and supplies will be reduced for those other teams. Contractual, which is basically officials and a few other things, transportation, and also in the extracurricular area, the fall production and some clubs of the fall production from the drama club and some clubs themselves will all be reduced, and I am recommending we keep those reductions in place. Under BOCES, we had reduced the communication specialist to 1 day a week. We eliminated speech improvement. Every single one of these things is a heartbreak. Speech improvement is an early intervention that helps our kiddos who come in at the right time and not waiting years into their education to try to assist them and give them corrective measures. All of these things are horrific for our school. The reduction of the full-time art and music teacher down to a 0.6 FTE, so that's a little more than half-time. The reduction of a PE teacher, no field trips, no late bus, reducing materials and supplies, textbooks, and professional development. I am recommending all of these items remain in place and we take action on reducing these if action has not yet been taken. The elimination of one elementary teacher. I recommend that remain in place. That action has been taken. The reduction of the science teacher, and technically we decided not to hire a replacement for the retiree. Reducing the 6th prep, which affects electives, and reducing the Spanish teacher to 0.8, 8/10 of a full job. We will continue, but as you saw, it is on this document, right, Lynn? Yes. So as you saw, our Spanish teacher resigned, and I am asking the board to consider eliminating that position, of course, temporarily, but to get through this economic crisis. We would add online Spanish for 12th graders and for any students in advanced regions who are seeking to complete high school with 3 years of Spanish, because we don't want to have them be in trouble in the out years, where, for example, the junior is taking Spanish 2 and plans to take Spanish 3 next year, and that the 3 years of Spanish is a requirement for the advanced regions. Now, it's much more complicated than that. As you know, high school diploma requirements are extremely complicated, so that's a bit of a simplification, but those students would have Spanish this year. Now, the students who would not have Spanish this year would be the 8th grade, who typically has Spanish 1. In fact, we would then be pushing it to the 9th grade, at the latest 10th grade. And yes, that will affect their plan of study. And yes, in 9th grade, maybe they will not get the other elective they were thinking about because Spanish 1 has to be there. All students need 1 year of Spanish to graduate. Getting an 8th grader 1 year of Spanish between now and graduation is not my fear. My concern is those advanced regions kids who need 3 years, but we are in an economic disaster. We have to carefully find ways to make it through this year. And I will say that in a typical economic downturn, most folks realize that it does not get better by year 2. In fact, it is typically more than that where we need to struggle. So Spanish, being able to give these students online Spanish who need to have it, these folks who are going to graduate this year, next year, or the year after, or on the track for the 3 years of Spanish, this is my recommendation. The next line for instructional technology, we were reducing the number of apps. Honestly, that's not a hardship because we had too many applications. Feedback from our students, our teachers, and our families after the remote instruction period at the end of last year indicated it was very confusing. After that experience, our teachers worked all summer with their principals to identify the fundamental applications and to simplify the range they were using. So this is something that we would have done no matter what. The hardware replacement, we have worked really hard on our budget for the last 6 or 7 years to get the hardware replacement in a routine manner. You may remember Mr. Bohm and I presenting to the board how important it was to ensure that we had a replacement plan embedded in our budget. It's heartbreaking to see it go, but we have no choice. We have to find where this is coming from. We had also recommended back in May to eliminate the information technology network management. I am now recommending that we do not eliminate that. This is so important. Without that network management, I honestly don't know if we could have pulled off the remote learning that we pulled off last spring. They have worked all summer to improve it. We have partnerships with the internet providers in our locality. We have gotten internet to every single family. And I will say that I had mentioned to the board about a grant to get 15 additional hotspots for just a couple of families that literally didn't even have a provider in their area. I received that email today. They have been shipped. The work that this group has done to keep teachers' computers working, students' computers working, applications licensed, paid for, working, and improving on it so that we can now begin a year using remote instruction if we're required to for all kids, if we get shut down, and using remote instruction for families who have chosen remote instruction. It is imperative that we have this group of people doing this work. I will sit here and tell you, I tried to do it myself. It is not possible. This is a huge infrastructure. The next item is to remove the, reduce the business office payroll clerk, to reduce the building secretary to appoint 5, one of the building secretaries, and eliminate the purchase of the sub finder. I have now revised that recommendation to eliminate the sub finder, but after working all summer long and seeing what the building secretaries are doing, they're all doing the work of 2 people. We kept this whole building going last spring. We kept this whole building going last summer, and we have been planning to implement. I highly recommend we do not reduce either one of those positions. The business office clerk is already a 0.4, believe it or not, how does that go? 0.475. So it's just under a half time. The outside student programs that were recommended, which is cutting the BARD program, no new students to heavy equipment or Tech Valley High in the out years. That was changed by the board. That's going to need to be updated The board did choose to send an additional student to Tech Valley High. We did have a student leave the district as well in just before the senior year, and that made a place. The heavy equipment, I just want to make note that all of that savings is in the out years, okay? But you see a savings of $46,900. And once again, I'd like to remind the board that that is because the student who is in year 2 of heavy equipment is providing transportation for that student, or we would not see that savings. It's the, you might recall that that trip has 4 legs to it, and it's the expensive short leg, actually, that has been eliminated by the parent offering to do the transportation. The last line of the May cuts was to cut 2 TAs and reduce one of the 2 library aides to a 0.6. The library aide has resigned. You, I believe, voted on that a moment ago as well. And so my recommendation is to not fill that position. There is, now you can go over to the additional items under the August 2020 recommendations, and you will see changes, and I mentioned most of them, but the new line is reductions in teacher retirement, employee retirement, Social Security, and I always say it wrong, Medicare, is that right? Due to the resignations or reductions. The textbook, library, books, this is additional reductions. So I will tell you, we have, it's a school. We spend a lot of money on books. That little bit of state aid we get is nothing. We have a very nice, hefty line item. We are using a lot of digital books. So therefore, I'm recommending we reduce the textbooks and library books by $43,000. In addition, for many years, the district has been able to purchase textbooks at the end of a school year instead of the beginning. And that was a pattern that was created because it was very helpful for teachers to receive their textbooks, inventory them, put them away, and begin their planning if they received them earlier than August. So we put that into place. We've now lost that ability. We're back with most schools. July 1st starts, the new budget kicks in, and we order books then. That is probably more typical. It was just a Germantown thing that was started many years ago, and we're going to lose the ability to purchase them early. I am in addition putting 2 negative numbers on this list. I am recommending, and you're all familiar with this, the Reopen GCS Living document, where at the back of the book there are items that we feel we need for our reopening plan. And I am recommending to hire a part-time cleaner for in-person days only. So in-person days are days when there are students in the building. We're not 100% sure if it will be less hours for every day or a few more hours for in-person days. If you agree to this recommendation, Jim Paul, Mary, and I have had many conversations, and Dina Bizzaro as well, trying to look at the very best model for this new position, which was created last month at a board meeting. And lastly, to hire 3 part-time general aides, who again will be used in in-person days for the supervision, which is going to be required for students when they are not engaged in live instruction with teachers here at GCS. This will enable us to put into place our plan to reduce interaction between groups of students, to help us establish that students can come to Germantown and be with what we're referring to as a pod of students. It's a cohort or group of students for the entire day without mixing with other groups. This is highly recommended by the New York State Department of Health, the Columbia County Department of Health, and was also highly recommended in the guidance we received from New York State Ed. This is something that we built our reopening plan on, and we are going to need these extra supervisory. These are not teaching assistants. They do not provide instruction. They provide supervision. For example, during lunchtime, when instead of a cafeteria that 3 individuals could oversee, we have 10 rooms of children eating with their pod or cohort. And that will bring us, and it changes every day. Just 2 hours ago, I came up with something that might adjust it slightly, but I think this, what I've just reviewed, indicates the change in priorities for the district on what to spend our money on while being extremely careful. The only reductions in staff that are on here, in addition to what we already looked at in May, are reductions for positions that people resigned from. And I think that's my last page. So I will get up out of my seat so that you can pose questions, and I will try to respond to them.
I see this, the Spanish here, that it's an online application that they're doing, and then it says BOCE's aid after.
Okay, so Heather just noticed the note I was supposed to see and tell you about. Thank you, Heather. So the online program, it's called Apex Learning. There's actually 3 different options, and I had the phone call today about what option fits our need. It's Apex Learning. What I did is I took the reduction of the Spanish teacher, then subtracted what it costs to give these kids their online Spanish class. And assuming BOCE's aid is still a thing, by next year, we will get BOCE's aid on that expense. We do not get BOCE's aid on a Spanish teacher. This is a single amount we pay per child. We know it up front. There's no additional fringe benefits. There's no other costs. And I'm recommending that that be the way we solve the problem for getting our students instruction in Spanish. Anybody else? I really hate to give you this news. I'm really, really hopeful that the reductions do not exceed 20%. But we need to be ready for them to exceed 20% because we don't know what's going to come.
Let me come over here. What happens with the GAP program?
Okay, great question, Teresa. So the GAP program is an independent 501c3 program. When we originally received a grant from the Dyson Foundation to create the GAP program back in, oh my gosh, maybe 2010 or before. No, it was before that. One thing that we decided to do was to make that program independent of the school district. Therefore, because we watched over years, every time we hit an economic downturn, all the school districts cut the after-school program first. Like we cut the late bus, right? Same idea. So when we created the program, it's an independent program. That program has been an incredible partner to us through the COVID pandemic crisis. Back in the spring, it was that program's license. You may be aware that we were required to partner with community entities to provide childcare. It was the GAP program license that we developed, the Germantown Central School District childcare, that we were able to tell the state, yeah, we got this. We're partnered with GAP and we're going to let them use our building, and we're going to use our aides and TAs as the personnel, and they're going to run that program. And we were able to offer the first responders, law enforcement, and medical workers childcare. So it is safe. It is its own entity. It did suffer last year because there were no paying people. But we have an amazing board of directors running it and an amazing director running it. And we continue to partner with them. We have identified a space for them in our building. And we have assured our families who are sending their children to in-person instruction that GAP is available to them for after-school childcare. You're very welcome. Any other questions? Okay, so I will move on to the item that I missed.
Yes.
Okay, the next item, which was really the first item. Hang on a minute, I have someone trying to get in the room, and I will stop sharing now. And once again, to the public, that will that PowerPoint will be placed on the website tomorrow. The action item is to approve the updates to the elementary school code of conduct and the senior high school code of conduct.
You need a motion? All right, Heather, second. All right, Teresa. All right, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Did you need us to have any action on that, if we choose to do so?
So I guess just any guidance. If there is something that the board wants more information on, obviously we are in a very serious economic situation. I'm anticipating I will be giving you updates for every board meeting because things are just changing all the time. And I want to be transparent with our community about what is going on so that they understand. If they thought one of their high school students was going to take a certain class and it's not available, it is largely going to be dependent on the economic situation and in some cases possibly on the pandemic situation. But I think it's really important for our community to know both of these things are hitting us at once. So I will continue to give the board updates. And if the board has anything you would like me to look at or Dina and I to look at together, feel free to let me know. And certainly we are constantly looking very carefully to anything that we can reduce. We're obviously only purchasing PPE. We're very fortunate that we have all the materials and supplies. We're one of the school districts who are fortunate to have already had one-to-one student use devices. We had used our Smart Schools Bond Act money to ensure they were kept up to date. And so honestly, we're in a pretty decent place there. Thankfully, we had just recently upgraded our primary servers. We did that last year and the year before. Jonathan and I had that put into place. So we have a strong network. We just upgraded our bandwidth. We are now at a gig. We have gone from 40 megabits per second. Hopefully I have that acronym right. Then we moved to 60, then 100, then 250, and we're at 1,000, which is a gig. That is aligned with the other information we've received. And I will say that our vendors and providers have been very much a partner with us to ensure that we are serving the community to the best of our ability. So once again, I will continue to update you. Certainly if we can find anything that we could maybe postpone as we watch what happens with our state aid as it unfolds in the next months.
that's no fun. Well, on that note,
I know I should have asked this before when you were going over this, but the 3 part-time general aides, the amount that you have listed here, are they, if we do this, it may be too early to know, but are they included in the GSA? And does this amount include everything, or?
Okay, so the question is about the 3 part-time general aides. They are a recognized title in the GSA. And it would, the way I was doing this is I looked at the health insurance benefits because it's always so high, and I looked at the salary. And that's why the number of the savings for things like retirement and payroll reductions or payroll withholdings is such a small number. Every time we reduce a position but then add a position, it becomes a wash. But if it's a lesser salary, of which it is, then we only had a small savings in that category. So yes, that position is already recognized by the GSA. It is considered part-time. It does have some fringe benefits. And it is a general aide, again, can do supervisory, cannot do instruction. This is not a library aide. This is not a teaching assistant. It is a general aide. That person will be used primarily for supervision and for some assistance with cleaning. And I don't mean cleaning in the COVID world cleaning. I mean, after lunch, we put the mess away before we begin our work. We gather the garbage. So it's going to be all hands on deck to make the in-person model working with our extremely strict health and safety protocols in place. We need more people. I hope that addressed your question. Thank you.
now just with these positions, just carrying off of that, the elimination of the Spanish high school library aide, if we just don't fill them, but not eliminate them from the, I mean, is that going to make a difference in the budget? I would not think, because we're not paying anybody.
So this all happened really quickly. We literally received the couple of resignations. I'm thinking maybe Thursday or Friday. Board packet went out Friday. I have to check into which is the correct thing to do, and that would be a Margot May question. Okay. Do we adjust the position? Does the board then eliminate the position, and then if everything goes great and you have the position back, you make the position? That is my guess of the proper way. But there are also other ways to look at it. So I just want to make sure the board is set up and does what the attorney who would recommend the proper protocol. But this is basically the big idea. You're looking at the big idea.
Okay. Anything else? We go to the order? All right, need a motion to adjourn? All right, thank you. Last second. All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right, thank you, everybody.
Donald, are you gonna shut it down?
The motion so quick. Everybody sent you a motion. And you're here after 10 minutes. So, well, it's over the window.
Yeah, I'm